Well, that's what some of the people of Belfast felt. Let's hear from the political culprits. Join us in studio, Sinn Féin Group Leader at Stormont, John O'Dowd, and DUP Junior Minister Jeffrey Donaldson. You're both very welcome. Jeffrey Donaldson, over the summer the politicians have made a good job of making themselves irrelevant.
Well, first of all, Jim, let's be absolutely clear. The Executive isn't on holiday. The Executive isn't meeting because Sinn Féin won't allow the Executive to meet. The First Minister made it absolutely clear he would return at any time during the summer to have a meeting of the Executive. We have pressed for meetings of the Executive. So if you're going to apportion blame, then don't call people culprits who are not responsible for where we are. Okay, the DUP, UUP, SDLP want the Executive to meet. We are available on Thursday to meet. We are not preventing a meeting from taking place.
John O'Dowd, Sinn Féin is the party that's been holding out. Will it meet now on Thursday? Will the Executive finally meet?
Well, what we've been doing over this last week and what we should have been doing all summer is engaging with the DUP. We have had extensive discussions with them. We've covered a range of issues, both economic, party political and departmental, and also executive business.
And progress? Has there been progress?
Well, there has been limited progress on some of those matters, but has there been progress on establishing a partnership government? I regret to say I don't think so.
But
if you're asking me, is there going to be an executive meeting this week? If you're asking me, is there going to be an executive meeting this week? The final decision rests with the joint ministers of Martin McGuinness and Peter Robson. But in my opinion, I do not believe there's been enough progress made towards partnership government for an executive meeting this week.
Jeffrey Donaldson, so there you have it. Not enough progress made. Have you conceded anything in these discussions to date?
Well, we have made progress, Jim, but I think people out there watching this programme will be absolutely dismayed and astounded that after a summer of flooding, when people have lost their homes, when people are losing their homes because they can't afford to pay their mortgages, when fuel costs are going through the roof, when electricity, gas and coal prices are at an all-time high, that their elected politicians cannot meet around a table to try and address some of these issues, I think is unpardonable, if I may say so. I think that if Sinn Féin, once again, let's be clear about this, the First Minister wants the meeting to take place on Thursday. The First Minister will be calling for a meeting on Thursday. That's absolutely clear.
What happens if a meeting doesn't take place on Thursday?
I think we have a major political crisis. The First Minister made that clear earlier in the summer. He stated very clearly if there is not a meeting on the 18th of September, which is 3 months since we last met, with all of the issues that we need to address, and we have cleared all the papers that were put before us. All of the issues that require executive approval have been cleared by the DUP, by the First Minister. There are a whole series of issues that are now stacking up that require agreement. Serious issues on health, education, on the welfare of our people. If the meeting doesn't happen, government is going to be in crisis, Jim.
John O'Dowd, is that what you want? Is it all or nothing for Sinn Féin?
No, it's certainly not. And Sinn Féin doesn't wish to have a crisis in government. What we want is a partnership government. Ian Paisley led the DUP into government, and it was a courageous decision on his behalf, and it was a courageous decision on Martin McGuinness's and Jerry Adams' behalf to lead Sinn Féin into government with the DUP. Ian Paisley made an effort to show that he was working in partnership with Sinn Féin, that he showed leadership to the community, and he has to be given recognition for that courage.
But Sinn Féin made an agreement to work in a partnership government. Now you seem not to want to do so because you won't have an executive meeting.
What we want to have is a partnership government. To have an executive meeting in the absence of that is only playing to the optics. We want to ensure that Sinn Féin and the DUP, the SDLP and the Irish Unionist Party, as one of your Vox Pack people said, working as a unit. We're not doing that at the minute. We have a DUP minister dismissing someone from an advisory board because he has an address in the 26 counties. What does that say to the nationalist and Republican community in the north of Ireland? Now, what we are doing is, I'm saying here, sitting here today, at this time, I personally do not believe there has been enough progress made. I believe that we should have been engaging all over the summer. The DUP did not engage. They have engaged in this last week. I believe much more progress could have been made, and I hope over the next 48 hours that the significant progress required is made.
Well, Jeffrey Donaldson, I mean, on what issues are you willing to concede progress? Did the DUP overplay its hand in the first year of devolution by calling victories in issues like the Irish language?
Well, Jim, we've made a lot of progress, there's no doubt about that, and I cannot believe that anyone seriously wants to drag us back at this stage. This crisis is entirely manufactured. Earlier this summer, we had an agreement with Sinn Féin on how we were going to handle the policing and justice issue. That statement was issued. We were going to refer the matter. We'd agreed a single department, a single minister, appointed by a cross-community vote. We'd agreed to refer the issue to the Assembly and the Executive Review Committee to take forward that work. For some reason that I cannot understand, after that agreement, Sinn Féin then set about creating a crisis situation that no one out there wants. We cannot afford a crisis. The people of Northern Ireland, there are elderly people out there, Jim, who can't afford a loaf of bread.
Can the progress be made in the next 48 hours? Because that's all we have, really, isn't it? Before
we do not want to see this crisis occur. We want to see the executive meeting on Thursday. But, you know, Sinn Féin are trying to manufacture a situation where they create the crisis because they've done it before. We had, very tellingly, a senior Sinn Féin member from the Republic saying they would pull their ministers out if they didn't get their way on policing and justice. Now, we've made progress on policing and justice. We've got a way of taking it forward in a sensible, mature manner. But I say this to you, Jim. If we're going to, at some time in the future, whenever it might be, take on the very sensitive issue of policing and justice, how on earth are we going to convince people that we've got the capacity to do that if we have a party who's supposed to be in partnership with three other parties now creating a crisis? What that says is the maturity is not there, that we can't even handle the issues we have at the moment.
Is it no surprise then that other parties are beginning to question the very structure of government when it's clear that both parties here are testing it to its extremes?
Well, if you're referring to Mark Durkan's statement that power sharing should come to an end, I think that is a disgraceful comment.
I don't think that's quite what he said.
It has given succour to elements within the DUP who are not prepared to work with Sinn Féin. There's elements within the DUP who want to renegotiate the Good Friday Agreement, who want to renegotiate the St Andrews Agreement and have a single party state. And what Mark Durkan has done has given them an element where they're saying if we hold out long enough in this, the SDLP, the British government and the Irish government will back us up in this. That is not the way to go.
And Sinn Féin is willing to continue holding out regardless of bread and butter issues because of the high politics.
What we have to do is ensure that we have stable government. Investors looking in upon us from the international community are aware that the final piece of the jigsaw is not in place. These are people who are prepared to invest billions of pounds in this society. But they look at the fine detail. They are aware that the government which we are running currently is not prepared to take on policing and justice. What does that say about the maturity of that government?
Well, we must leave it there, but gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed.